Just Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Yes, hello again and a happy new year. Welcome to episode 121 of this podcast series. And for the first episode of 2026, I'll be talking to a fabulous comedian and Panto legend.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
Now, in the last episode, I was joined by the former Hearsay singer, musical theatre star, Dancing on Ice winner and Emmerdale actress Suzanne Shaw, who is appearing in Dick Whittington for Imagine Theatre at the De Montfort Hall in Leicester. Now, if you're new to the series, we've been chatting to all sorts of fascinating guests, from celebrities and backstage team members to Panto practitioners and academics. We've discussed specific Panto characters and titles. We've talked about how pantomime is produced, its history and its future. Now, there's an index to all of the 100 plus episodes on the Imagine Theatre website, and you can catch up with any of those episodes where you normally get your podcasts. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to the series so you don't miss out in the future. This time, I'm delighted to say I've been joined by the writer, the tutor, the performer who's established himself as one of Britain's most successful comedians and a Panto legend. Just thinking about him makes me laugh. He's appearing in Jack and the Beanstalk at the Bristol Hippodrome this Christmas. It's the West Country's favourite daft comedian, Andy Ford. How are you?
Hello, my lover. I'm so honoured to be 121. And let me just tell you, I'm following 120, and the lovely Suzanne Shaw was my Cinderella at the Bristol Hippodrome once, so that's just worked out lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a bit about your childhood. Were you always funny as a kid?
Well, I suppose it's traditional. I wasn't particularly good looking. That happened last week. And when I was little, I didn't get the girls, so I sort of messing around. I came from a family where we'd go around my gran and granddad's on a Saturday night and everyone would sing. So most of all, I became a singer, and then I like to make people smile, so I forced my sisters into doing tea time shows in the front room for mum, dad and my auntie and uncle. So I've always sort of performed, and I suppose it was for the reward, but also because I love to do it. So, in inverted commas, I've always been a poser, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you go to see Panto as a child down in the West Country somewhere?
I think I may have seen one or two Amdrammy things, but the moment that I got completely turned on to Panto, it was in mid-80s. My son was born in 82, so he was about 4 or 5. Took the kids to see Aladdin at the Theatre Royal in Plymouth with Danny LaRue. And the star of the show for me, we were sitting right up in the gods at the Theatre Royal, was Alan Stewart, the impressionist Scottish guy, fantastic. And he ripped the place. He was warm, he was funny, he did a phenomenal thing of Michael Jackson singing I'm Leaning on a Lamppost by George Formby. It was just the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And as I sat there, at that time I'd been singing in dance bands, I had my own band, I was playing guitar vocals in pubs and clubs. But in my mind, I always wanted to be a comedian, and I can tell you the reason for that a little bit later on. But so I'm sitting watching thinking, that is what I want to do. Years later, it actually happened. And just a tributary of that thought, when I was on a cruise ship once, Alan Stewart was also on there, and we bonded, and I told him about the story, how he had been my inspiration to be a Panto star, and we became really good friends and table tennis buddies on the cruise ship because there's nothing else to do. So that was the start of it. I had a moment before where I discovered that comedy was to be my life, but I was only 14 at the time. But when you're ready, I'll throw that one at you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about whether Andy Ford could have been a rock star, because you mentioned being a singer with a band and going solo, but I think your first gig was at the age of 12 or something, and there are so many from the 60s particularly of bands, and I'm thinking about the Barron Knights, who moved into comedy, Russ Abbott, of course, with the Black Abbots, then moved into comedy. That's what you did.
I think the thing that happens to start with, when you're a live band, and someone breaks a string, you have to fill in. And I'd always had this desire to be a comedian, so I'd fill in with a couple of gags here and there, and it started to get good reaction. So eventually, when I went solo, it was my show. I could put in as much as I wanted, and it built and built and built until eventually I put the banjo and the guitar down and just stood up and did what I do, really.
And that was the start of the cabaret circuit stuff, really, was it?
Yeah, I suppose so. When I was, let me try, I'm not sure how old it was at the time. It was early 80s anyway. I started running a holiday park in East Devon called Lattram Bay. And I did the gig there one year, went so well that they invited me back. I said, I can put the entertainment in if you like. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I thought, let's get my feet under the table. And I introduced green coats. I put all the acts on, but of course I was the boss of the entertainment. So when I did a cabaret, I chuck in the gags, and it grew and grew from there. And I was lucky enough to be doing that for about 6 months, 2 or 3 times a week. So I had time to practice and get paid for it. So I was very lucky.
Was that when you started to develop your own style? Because you are unique. And I mentioned, the daft comedian, but were you just doing gags in those early days, or were you already working on being different?
I can tell you the exact moment it happened. I was playing at St Ives in Cornwall in a holiday camp, and it's the first time I met my now wife, and she saw the show. She was actually a stage manager for a touring group from London, a college of performers. They did songs from the musicals and stuff. Bit weird for a holiday camp at the time, but anyway, it was different. So the holiday camp went for it. Anyway, we fell in love, blah, blah, blah. But she, after my first show, she'd seen my whole show, and she said to me, "Why are you doing those gags?" And I said, "Well, everybody does them on the circuit." She said, "Do you think they're funny?" And I said, "Well, not particularly." She said, "I got a brilliant idea." I said, "What's that?" She said, "Why don't you do the things that make you laugh?" And I thought, wow, no one's ever said that to me before. And then she said, "And why are you dressing like a 55-year-old man at the age of 30? Yeah, we were destined to be together forever, weren't we?
Yes.
So we got together, and I reinvented myself. And what I took as the inspiration was, when you see a kiddie, I don't know, 4 or 5 or whatever, and they're happy or they're upset, you just see their truth. If they're upset about something, they stomp their feet and, "Oh, it's not fair." And it's okay when you see a kid do it, but when you put that body language into an adult, it's funny. So to start with, I wanted my gags to be clever, but simple and silly, and my body language to be like a child. So that was my starting point, if you like. And I just felt liberated because I pulled the comedy from inside out. I'd grown up loving the Goons and Tony Hancock and Monty Python, and I could suddenly be an original comedian, and I love that. And I changed my clothes, and I changed the act, and I got no work for 2 years. All the agents turned their back on me and said, "You used to be a really reliable act." He said, "I can't put that out. What's that?" But I believed in it. And we did a video show, put together a video for a program called The Big Big Talent Show on ITV, which was a big launch thing for me with Jonathan Ross. And I did what I believed in at the audition, and they looked at each other. I could hear them say, "I've never seen anything like that." And when I used to go on to do the Des O'Connor shows and stuff, Des would often introduce me as, "Do not adjust your set. This is different to anything you've seen before." And like Joe Pasquale's then manager, Michael Vine, said, "That's exactly it. You have to be Marmite. You have to be so different and do what you believe in. To be honest, I'm really lucky in the genre of pantomime because it encapsulates that young boy original idea.
Yeah.
It works in Panto. But some, as in all businesses, some people flipping hate me. But, as they say, or as Taylor says, I can shake that off.
I don't think I know anybody who hates you. I think everybody I know loves you. And in those few years, from the big talent show through to a Royal Variety Show, and obviously Panto coming along as well. I mean, you've done so much stuff. I first came across you. I did see you on the big talent show, but I first came across you proper on Havakazoo, watching the TV show with my son, who was the target age, and we watched it every single time, and I just could not stop laughing. And I thought then, the innocence and the truth from you was perfect for Panto.
That's really interesting because, like I said, when I took it back to the basics, that's who I wanted Patrick the Baker to be. I mean, in a way, I had in my mind, because of my age, Mr. Pastry, Richard Hearn.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be silly, but Richard Hearn worked in the 50s, but Patrick the Baker had to work in the 2000s. So it had to be a modern, naive idiot, but someone, it's like, Buttons, isn't it? You love Buttons. The kids love him. The adults love him. He doesn't get the girls, so that appeals to the adults. He's a bit of a silly Billy that appeals to the kids. And that's sort of in two sentences is pantomime, isn't it? It's got to appeal to everyone, be simple enough to make the kids laugh, clever enough to make the adults laugh, and make them all laugh at the same time, but at different things. And there's no other genre out there that can do that.
No, and I immediately thought, having seen Havakazoo, I immediately thought of, all of the fabulous Panto slosh scenes, the baking scenes, and all that sort of stuff, and thought, this is the stuff you're doing, the physical stuff particularly, was Panto on Havakazoo, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, basically that's one. But the great thing is the director thought I was really funny, and he said, "This is a scene. What do you want to do?" And I actually put a bit of Tommy Cooper in there. One day we did a show about camping, and so Patrick the Baker had to go in a little tent. And you know the Tommy Cooper gag where he brings on the cabinet, pulls the curtain across, goes inside, pulls it back the other way, then opens it quickly and said, "It's dark in there." Right? Well, I did that with a tent on Havakazoo, and that was a special moment for me because I love Tommy so much, and probably like you, I can tell you exactly where I was the day he passed away.
I can, yeah.
I was doing a gig in Dawlish, and it was just a solo gig, and at the end of it, I think I rang my mum or something, and she said, "Tommy Cooper's gone." And so I'll never, ever forget where I was, because him, along with Eric and Ernie, were the reason I'm a comedian, basically.
No, you're right. They were legends, all of them, weren't they? And going back to Tommy, I remember it well. I was watching it on live at Her Majesty's as it happened.
I've never watched it, Mark. I've never watched it, and I won't.
No, but I was watching it at the time, and obviously nobody had a clue. Nobody thought it was part of the act, but it was tragic in the end. It's interesting, though, because a lot of the stuff you've been talking about, that innocence, the simple Simon comedian, if you like, there's a lot of Norman wisdom in there. A little bit, maybe even going back to Will Hay and others like that. Pantomime shows that innocent comedy will always work because it knows no boundaries, does it?
Well, I'm on tour at the moment. I've got one more to go. And the other night, a lady came up to me after the show and she said, "Thank you for not swearing at me." She said, "That was just so funny. No swear words, nothing shocking." Because the thing is, when, like, the people Will Hay and Norman and all that were about, shock wasn't a thing. The comedy wasn't based on making people go, oh, I can't believe he said that. Or, it was just, oh, that's funny. That's silly ass, or whatever. You'd laugh at their antics. But suddenly, I suppose society has changed so much that now to get through, you have to swear or shock. And some people do that brilliantly. I'm certainly not knocking, the comedy club side of things. But it don't suit me. I was born in 1957. It is what it is.
It was a good year that year, wasn't it?
Wasn't it good? It was a rather fine Beaujolais. But I grew up loving what I loved, and that became part of me. What you watch and what you enjoy and what talks to you never leaves you. So I can't suddenly turn myself into something else. I am what I am, a bit of a dinosaur now, I suppose, but a happy, jolly dinosaur.
Yeah, a very funny dinosaur as well,
Very
I have
clever.
to say. You mentioned Des O'Connor, and I have to give him credit because he was so supportive of so many performers, particularly comedians, not just from this country, but from across the pond as well, wasn't he?
Jay Leno did his first major British TV, I think, on Des. But Joe, and Bradley and all that lot, we all did it, and I did it regularly in Des and Mel, and it was great. And Des said to me one day, when I went in to see him in his dressing room before, he said, Andy Ford, you're on the show more than I am. He was such a lovely man, so supportive. I miss him so much. He was just great.
Right. When you started to do Panto then, what did you love about it? What's the thing that you love about Panto?
I think the hole that I fit into is Andy Ford shaped. So therefore, I think it's the best place for me to do what I do is a pantomime, because I live it, I love it. My wife says to me the week after Panto finishes, it's a year away. I said, I know, but I think I'll write the song sheet. It's in my head. And it starts up. Panto is addictive, for people that have never done it. And that's the other thing he said tangentially, is that not everyone can do it. Really, really, really good comedians couldn't do Panto necessarily. I wouldn't put Jimmy Carr in a Panto. He probably is too successful, because he'll get the big bucks doing his own shows. But what I'm saying is, not everyone fits a pantomime.
No.
Because a pantomime is more than just showing people how good you are and how funny you are. You have to work with people that come from opera, stage, the Royal Shakespeare Company. So David Suchet just threw that in. You're working with people. You're working with people that have got great skill sets. But your job's not to stand out there and say, well, hang on, I'll take this because I'm funny. Bang. Your job is to put the funnies in when it's right for the script. But everyone has their moment. And when someone else has their moment, you have to stand back and let them momentize, whatever the word is, because Panto is a team. And it doesn't work if it's all about one person. I've seen it done that way. And I don't think the audience enjoy it as much because they love to see the dancing. They love to see that pop star sing the song or the actor do his little bit of emotion at the end of it. I mean, Sir David Suchet, right at the end of the show, turned back in from Hook into Poirot, and it took the roof off. And I stood back while he did it, and the strangest thing is in the script, he did that big Poirot bit, everyone went crazy, and I had to go, hang on a minute, and went up to him and ripped him to shreds with comedy. And he loved that. When I met him for the launch, I'm sure I curtsied. I think I let myself down a bit. I'm sure I curtsied. And I said, Sir David, what an honour. And he said, Andy Ford, dear boy, I'm hoping to learn so much from you. And I thought, flipping heck, this guy who's done everything says he wants to learn from me. But that's the thing. He's humble. He's confident. And a lovely, lovely man, but not arrogant. Arrogance is where you think you can do it all. Confidence is you've got the confidence to learn what you need to do and do it well. So, and he's very confident. And of course, he picked up Panto really easily, but he loved it. And he said to me at the end, I've never enjoyed a genre like this so much before. He said, it's the first proper Panto. He said, I don't think I'll ever beat it, so I'm never going to do another one.
Wow.
And he's turned down Pantos left, right, and centre. So he wants to hold up what we had as, his prize, and he doesn't want to go in and then get second place. That's
you've worked with so many other famous people as well, and for anybody who's even interested in Panto or thinking about performing in Panto, there are so many fabulous YouTube clips of you that they're like masterclass training sessions. One is my favourite with our own Eric Potts, Ben Goff. I just laugh thinking about it. It's a classic routine, but it's the timing and everything. The drill routine is perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, and the joy of that is everyone knows where they are in the piece. And it's working, like when I work with people like, Eric is just fantastic. And people like Leslie Joseph and that, when you're up close, it's an eye contact sport, basically. Mm-hmm. You're looking at her saying, I'm giving you this line, and you'll know instinctively when I'm done, and then you can slap it back to me. And it's all done with the eyes, because all the years of experience, Eric and I, when we were doing our comedy bits together, obviously you try and you want to make it as good, but what I'm saying is it wasn't a task to do it because we both trusted each other. And as they say, the eyes have it, and that's the most important part of comedy. When you're doing Panto and you're working up close, you get everything you need to know from the person you're working with by their eyes.
Yeah, but I get the impression, Andy, in the best possible sense, you could be a nightmare because when you've got a twinkle in your eyes, anything can happen.
Yeah, but you get, that might be a bit worrisome on the first or second night, but as people get used to me, like I worked with the lovely Sam Holmes last year down in Plymouth, and it grew. It takes 3 or 4 shows. The first show is always good, but the understanding and bedding in usually comes a few shows on, and when you hit it, the task is not to let it go. I've got permission from the producers that booked me to have a bit of a play. That's what they booked me for, but not so much of a play that I changed the feed line to another performer and messed them up. Yes, if something happens with the audience, that's my job. Get on it, Andrew. But the piece still has to work, and it mustn't get too long. So, yeah, it's controlled ad-libbing when the moment's right.
When did the writing start? Because you do a number of other things as well. Script writing is one of them. But I mentioned at the beginning you're a tutor and you've got an online course as well that you run. When did all that start?
I think it was a natural progression, really, because when I work with people that want to learn, a comedy side of things, then I go through all the stuff that I go through in my soon-to-be released book coming out next year called Confidence Through Comedy, learning the skills of the stand-up comedians for use in everyday life. That's basically what it's all about. So when I'm chatting to people, just like, for example, the lovely Rob Rinder, is just the most gorgeous man. I think he had a gag in one of the shows. I can't remember what it was. Made it difficult to sit on the bench or something. It was a gag anyway, something suggesting a bottomal area. But anyway, so the line was, it's difficult to sit on the bench was the tag. And one night he said, it's difficult to sit on my bench. And I had to say, what you've done without realizing is you've taken the gag away. Because you've suddenly made, by saying my bench, it's a bench. But sitting on the bench is like an occupation. So the gag works if they don't see a bench in their mind. And he went, oh my God, just by changing one word, I've taken the gag away. I said, yeah, it's that. Yeah, you have to be. Barbara Windsor once said to me, oh no, can you pick that name up for me, Martin? I just dropped that.
Wow.
She said to me, because we were working with, Eric and I were working with her, and she used to stand in the wings every night and watch me do a comedy routine. It was about 5 minutes. And she watched 50 of them, every one. And I came off one night and she said, you changed the word there, darling, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did, Barbara. I did. She said, did you think it was funnier? And I said, well, it was all right. And she looked into my eyes and she went, all right, darling. In other words, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it can be very small thing like that with comedy. But the most important thing is warmth, because if the audience don't love you, they won't laugh at you. So it's learning. That's why I'm doing this book with the helping personality stuff, as well as knowing how to tell a joke or create funny moments. People have to like you. And Panto, more important than any other genre, if you're being a comedian in Panto, within 30 seconds of walking out, they've got to say, oh, he's funny, I like him, he's safe, he's not going to upset Granny or the kids. And people do that computer check in their brain in the first 30 seconds.
The other thing as well, because of your innocence and the sort of character you portray, kids relate to you as well, whereas a comedian that comes out and tells clever jokes, the kids don't really warm to in quite the same way. I love, by the way, and I think you should introduce this now into your act, your impression of Barbara Windsor. I think you should do some impressions. Darling. I think that's amazing. Did you mention, have you got a book coming out or something?
Yeah, we've got 2 books coming out. Last year, I released my autobiography called Pantos for Life, Not Just for Christmas. And that went to #1 on Amazon, bestseller. It's one of them things, Mark, I finished it and I went, oh, I didn't put that in. Oh, I didn't put that in. Oh, I didn't put that in. So the sequel's called Pantos for Life 2, The Stuff I Forgot. So that's coming out next year. There's so much of it. And also, when I finished last year's book, my dad was still with us, and when I lost him just before Panto last year. So I've got to tell the world about my dad, because he's the reason I'm sitting here talking to you today, because he encouraged me from a very early age. We'd go down on the bus, banjo in my hand, put it under the stairs on the bus, and Dad would take me to the pubs and clubs and encourage me. He taught me all the old songs that I first played on the banjo when I started to gig, and it was his enthusiasm that got me going. So I really have to pay tribute to him, and that will be in the sequel. Plus the book. Confidence Through Comedy book. It's a self-help book for humor and personality and confidence, obviously. So I'm using all the stand-up comedian skills. I'm not giving away secrets, because people will use it in their own way. So although it's a book with a load of stuff in it to learn, when people buy it, and you'll see when you get it, that you learn the things that suit you and your own personality. So it's hopefully that'll be successful, and that'll be coming out probably in the spring.
One thing we talk about a lot when we talk about Panto on this podcast is the fact that every Panto should be different. Whether it's the same title as The City Down the Road, it's got to be unique for your audience. And one of the key things about you, and I know you've done Panto all over the place, but in the West Country and anywhere in the Southwest, your accent is what people relate to, and that's important as well, isn't it?
Well, they can understand you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of them, aren't I, really? but when I'm in Bromley or Croydon or Northampton or even Doncaster, it works in all these places. It works. But when I'm in the West Country doing Panto, it's like, as soon as I come out and say, all right, my lover, it's like they all sit back in their seat and go on then, boy, tell us a funny story, won't they? because they're me and I'm them. And that's what I love so much about playing, And this is my 12th time this year at the Bristol Hippodrome, but I've also done 4 in Plymouth.
Yeah.
And if I'm not in the Bristol Hippodrome, people get upset. And I've had this year, I'm not in Plymouth, and people writing to me saying, "Why are you not in Plymouth?" Well, I can't be in 2 places at one time. But I'm just honoured that I get the same reaction from the audiences at both those magnificent theatres, Martin.
You're loved wherever you play, if I'm honest, but in the Southwest particularly, you are part of what makes a local panto local, and that's really important. I think the audience need to be able to relate to it. I have to ask you, what's your favourite panto title?
Oh, it's Cinderella by a mile. I love beating buttons. I've always loved to beat buttons. He gets the kids, as I said earlier. He devoted and completely in love with Cinderella, but he doesn't get her, but he still wants her to be happy. I mean, what a lovely bloke he is. But he's also a prat, so that's great. So there's all that. It's all like someone's knitted him together out of the finest threads. He stands out there and he's everything to everyone. He's the narrator. He's the silly one. He's the one that's going to stand up for Cinderella. He's going to fight. And at the end, he's going to sing a silly song that everyone can join in with. So, it's the best job in the world. And Buttons is my favourite character, followed closely by Smee and all the other ones. But this year, first time in my life, I'm playing Farmer Trot, and I'm learning how to put a West Country accent together. It's going to be a challenge.
Oh, well, I think you should listen to some Wurzel's albums. That'll help.
The way I talk normal, I don't think it's going to work.
No, you won't fit in otherwise, so you need to work on that accent. You really do. Think about, I got a brand new combine harvester, and you'll be all right with that.
Yeah, I thought you were showing off then.
Listen, it's been absolutely fabulous talking to you. I have to say, anybody who gets a chance to come and see you wherever you're performing should do so. Buttons is the perfect... I can see why you chose that. Buttons is perfect for you with the pathos. It is that Norman Wisdom movie of the boy who doesn't get the girl, who's a bit of an idiot, but actually is loved by everybody, and the innocence and everything is all part of it, isn't it?
Plus, I love him. I do. I love him. When I put him on to walk out on the stage, it's like the greatest moment, because I'm him.
All the very best in the run of Farmer Trot this Christmas, and thank you, Andy, so much for talking to us.
Martin, it's been a pleasure. I could talk about Panto all day, and you're a great listener, mate.
Well, that's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe through your favourite podcast app. Make sure you join me next time for episode 122, when I'll be going behind the scenes at a very special performance of one of Imagine's pantomimes this year.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.